Hello and welcome to Uptech America's Oracle EBS Financials Functional Training. My name is Bob and I'm the lead senior consultant for Uptech America. And with me today I have Victor, who is also a senior consultant. And today we are handling lesson 29 of accounts payables. Victor, please walk us through.
Thank you for the introduction, Bob. Welcome everybody to this lesson in our Oracle Financials Functional Training series. In this session, I would like to cover the concept of distribution set. So we are going to have a discussion on what distribution sets are and how they are used in payables. Okay. So in order to understand distribution set, we have to go back to the structure of invoices that we talked about at the very beginning of our payables lessons. And we said that for an invoice or in Oracle, the hierarchy for invoices is as shown on the screen. At the very highest level, we have a batch. A batch can contain one or more invoices. An invoice can contain one or more lines, okay? And then the lines will have one or more distributions, okay? So we should be very comfortable at this point with this hierarchy and what each portion is or what each portion means, okay? But just as a refresher, we know that the distributions are the actual accounts, okay? The combinations that we usually use in Oracle, and which are usually hit by the amounts that we enter when we are entering invoices, okay? So normally when we enter an invoice, the way we have been doing it in most of our examples, we have a batch, we give the batch a name, then that batch will have one or two invoices, okay? Then after we enter the information in the invoice header, we go down to the line section. And most of the time, we have been entering our invoices like this, if you follow the path of invoice number 2. So we have the batch, we enter the invoice, then the invoice will have one line. At the line level, we enter a distribution account, okay? And that distribution account is filled down to the distribution screen. So if you see that distribution screen, if you go to the distribution screen, then you will see the account that you entered at the line level. However, we know that we can have this situation whereby, or this situation here shown by line B, whereby instead of entering the account at the line level in the field where it says distribution account, we can go to the distributions and enter different accounts if the amount on this line is being split among different accounts, okay? So lines will be split into one or more distributions, okay? So where does the distribution set fall into this? A distribution set allows us to have predefined distributions that we can use at the line level, okay? For example, let's say you usually receive an invoice. In our example, we are going to use a meals invoice or something. So for example, maybe you have a restaurant that usually that company that you are working for as a consultant, it has a restaurant that usually provides food for their employees. And so every end of the month, they receive an invoice, okay, for all the food that you have provided for the employees of the company. Now, this company might want to distribute the cost of those meals among the various departments or among the various divisions, okay? And consequently, it will mean that different accounts or code combinations will be used, okay? So how you can use a distribution set is you enter the invoice, then instead of going to enter the distributions manually, you will have created a distribution set that contains the accounts that are going to be affected, okay? So in this case, when we are talking about meals, so it's a specific account that's hit for every division or for every department at the end of every month. So you'll just create a distribution containing those accounts. And when you go to enter the invoice at the line level, you'll just select the distribution set that you've created from a drop-down list. When you enter that distribution set, then the distribution accounts are automatically exploded and filled in the distribution screen. So you will go, and when you open the distribution screen, you will see those accounts contained in the distribution set. All right. So even by just listening to the name, it's a distribution set. So what does it contain? It contains a number of distributions, and we know what distributions are. So we do have types of distribution sets, and we have two of them in Oracle. So we have a full distribution and we have a skeleton distribution. What is the difference between these two? The difference between these two is that when you're defining a full distribution, you, apart from putting down the individual accounts, code combinations for that distribution set, you also define percentages for how the amounts are going to be split among those accounts, okay? So for example, in our scenario whereby we are using meal expense that is distributed among divisions. So assuming that each division or each department, they consume the same amount of food, and therefore each department is charged the same amount for whatever food they have consumed at the end of every month. So if you have 4 divisions, then you will know that whatever amount you receive on the invoice is going to be split among those 4 divisions equally. So when you're defining this distribution set, you will define that percentage for each account as 25%, or depending on the number of splits that you're going to have, the appropriate percentage amount. On the other hand, for skeleton distribution, you only describe or you only define the amounts, you only define the accounts, okay? So you'll enter the account numbers or the account combinations, the combinations, but you won't enter how the amounts are going to be split. So for example, maybe you have the same scenario where you have 4 departments and you receive an invoice that is supposed to be split among those 4 departments every so often or at the end of every period. However, these amounts are not split in the same way at the end of every period. So you have to actually go and enter the amounts that are going to hit each account. So that is when you would use a skeleton distribution in place of a full distribution. But besides that difference, distribution set is the same for both full and skeleton distributions. Now this is just a representation of what we have just said. So in this example, I've used Mascani meals expense distribution set. So if it's a full distribution set and you have 4 divisions, these are our divisions that I've used. It could be departments or anything. They just have to be different accounts or code combinations. So if you have 4 of them and they're splitting this amount evenly, then you will define the percentages as 25% for each. So for example, if the invoice comes in and it's for $1,000, then each account will be hit with $250, right? For the skeleton, on the other hand, you don't define the percentages. Actually, what you enter is you just enter 0%, all right? And when you enter the amount this way, the system automatically knows what kind of distribution set you're creating. So you'll actually see that there's nowhere we go and select the type of distribution set. Rather, when we finish defining our distribution set, the system will know what kind of set it is. Because the percentages for the full, they will have to add up to 100. And once you enter the percentages here, then the system knows you're entering a full distribution. For the skeleton, you don't enter any values you only enter 0 in the percentage field. Okay. So in order to create a distribution set, this is the navigation that we use. And now that you know what a distribution set is, we'll go ahead and see how to create and use one. So let's head on over to Oracle. Let's first go to our invoices. Query the invoices we have created here under Mascani. Okay, so let's pick this invoice. So this is the invoice header, right? These are the lines. So each line could have 1 or more distributions. Okay. Normally, how we have done it is we enter the line, then we enter the distribution account. Okay, so if you go to the distributions for this line, then it will be that single account that we entered. However, we can have more than one distribution, which adds up to the line total. So the distribution total will have to add up to the line total. When we're using a distribution set, on the other hand, we just come here and we enter the distribution set. All right. So when you explore these distributions, you will see all the accounts that you have defined there. If it's a full distribution, you will see the accounts and the amounts already pre-populated. If it's a skeleton, you will see the accounts, but you won't see the amounts. You'll have to come and enter the amounts manually. All right. Okay, so I just wanted us to see where we enter the distribution set and what it kind of replaces in terms of what we have been using before. So now let's go and try to create our own distribution set. Navigation again is set up, invoice, I believe, then distribution sets. So this is the window you get when you follow that navigation, and this is where you create a distribution set. So we are going to give this a name. Let's give our distribution set Maskani Meals Distribution, Meals Expense Distribution, right? We can have the name and the description being the same. So that is the line. Let me close this first, or no, we can just work from here. So I wanted to see how many divisions we have first, so I can know how to split the percentages. So I want to split it by this division. So we have 4 industrial, retail, single family homes and apartments. That's just what I picked. You can split your account by department if you feel it makes more sense. Just pay attention to the overall concept you're trying to learn. Okay, so if we have 4, then we want to split 100% by 4, which gives us 25. So let's enter the first account, which is going to be 001. The account, I believe we have a meals expense account, so that's the one we are going to use instead of the normal expense one. So there it is, meal. The first division is industrial plant. Department, we can use default. Okay. Line number 2, we also want to have 25%. 001. Meals expense. This should be 101. Then go to the third line. This is just sequence. So here you can use 1, 2, 3 or 10, 20, 30. The next 25% should be 001.005.011.102.00. And the last 25 should be 001. Okay. So you can see automatically this pre-fills us a full distribution because we have entered this percentage amounts. All right. So let's save that. We can also create a skeleton distribution. Then we'll go and see an example of how to use them both together. So we can say Maskani expenses let me see, Maskani department expenses So this, maybe we can assume these are like miscellaneous expenses or something like that. We are going to split this by department. So let's see what we have. So 001, we're going to use our normal expense account. Oh, okay. This time I will use default here. And then under department, we can use one operations there. Okay. So this should be 0%. This should also be 0 again. Let's go to our next account. Should be 001, 005,000. HR and payroll. Okay. 0. Should be 30. Sales and marketing. Uh, 5,000. We're defaulting that, and the department should be the last one, finance. So these are by department, these expenses. As you can see, it's already pre-filled as skeleton because of these 0 values in the percentage column, so we can save that. So we have 2 distribution sets for our Mascani developers operating unit. All right, and now we can use them when we are entering our invoices. Okay. So this is what we are going to do. Create a batch invoice. At the line level, we are going to pick one line, and we're going to use distribution set, which is going to explode the amounts. If it's the full distribution set, it's going to have the accounts and the amounts according to the percentages we defined. If it's a skeleton, it's going to explode the line into different distributions, but we'll have to enter the amounts manually. So let's go and see that in action. So what we want to do is to enter an invoice. You can call this Mascani meals and expenses test distributions. Right? So invoices. Let's enter our first invoice. Invoice number Let's use a good amount, $1,000. We want the payment terms on this. Can use Maskani immediate, and the payment method we will check. That's what we have to enter for the header part. So when we go to the line, what we usually do, we usually enter the amounts. Okay, so if this invoice has just one line, then you can enter the 1,000 here. So normally we would come and pick an account over here and enter it, right? And enter the account, distribution account. But now what we want to do is we want to use a distribution set. And these are the two sets that are available to us. So let's use our full distribution first, the Maskani Meals and Expense distribution. Okay. So that has been entered, and we can save our work. So now if you go to distributions, what should we see? We should see all the accounts that we defined there in the distribution set that we have used. This line will be split into those accounts, and the amount $1,000 will be divided equally among those accounts. So let's go to distribution, and there we are. The amounts are 250. Okay, and then here we have the accounts, the different accounts that we defined. So that's how to use the full distribution. Technically, I mean, if everything has been implemented well, just like when we were using the distribution single line with a distribution account, you don't have to go to the distributions page to do anything, because the amounts and the accounts will be automatically filled for you. Okay, so let's enter another invoice still under this batch, so that we can see the use of the skeleton distribution. So same supplier, same date, invoice number MJ10012, use 500. And let's use the terms Maskani immediate. Payment method we are using is check. And that should do it for the header part. So when we go to the line, we can enter 500. All right. Or you can enter, you can even enter more than one line. So we can enter this invoice like this. So we have an invoice here, then you have one line with one distribution, and then you can apply a distribution set to the other line. You can apply distribution to each line if you want. If you have defined your distribution sets and that distribution set is appropriate for whatever invoice you are entering. So for example, here the invoice that we are entering is for 500. We can put 250 in one line, all right? And here we can use a distribution account. And this is just for demonstration. Then in the second line, we can add the other 250. And then now use the enter that right. 250, yeah. Then now use a distribution set instead. All right. And that's it. That's the distribution set. And we can save our work. So the first line should have one distribution. The second line should have 4. I believe we entered 4. So let's start with the first line. This is what we've normally been doing. If we go to distributions, that's the only one, and therefore it's pre-filled. Okay. If we go to this and look at distributions, the accounts are there, but the amounts are not. So we have to divide this 250, the line total, among all these accounts. Okay. So we can say 50 here, 50 there, 75 there, and 75 there. Okay, and that adds up to 250. So that's what you have to do in the case whereby you're using a skeleton distribution set. And save your work. And that should be it. So in this session, you have learned about distribution sets, the types of distribution sets, what they are, and how to use them in Oracle. And Bob, unless you have something to add, that's a good place to end this session.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.